We don't think about it, but we all inherently understand that a good start is better than a bad start. For example, if this morning you peacefully rolled over, your eyes woke up, fully rested, like 30 seconds before your alarm went off, you were like, today's going to be a good day. Or if you accidentally snoozed 5 times and woke up, and that's why you're at the 10 and not the 8:30, it was not as good a day. Right? We all understand this idea and the value of a great start. Maybe you're on the way to church today and you pulled up to a red light and the road in front of you is going to merge. And so you became a drag racer like we all do, and you kind of just got ready and you knew I got to get this good start because if this traverse beats me to that merge, then my life's going to be over. And if I beat them to the merge, I'm going to be the king. And all the wives are rolling their eyes and all the husbands are like, yes, and? We understand the value of a grace. In fact, we got any NASCAR fans? You can hoot and holler. No? All right. Yeah, we can tell. So if you've ever seen NASCAR, they literally compete to start in a better position. And a couple times in a race, now I'm even told they have yellow flags, which are cautions. They have to slow down. And then they have to restart. And restarts are very, very important because if you miss the restart, you can go from first to like 40th real quick. And so there's value in starting well. If you watch the Olympics, if you watch sprinting, we love to watch those guys run really fast. But have you ever thought about the importance of them being down in those blocks? I mean, if they get a bad start, like if they flinch, they could be out. We understand the value of a great start. College football is about to start. Really excited about that. Everybody's undefeated still, which is really exciting. Have you ever been at a game or been watching a game and you're all pumped because you're going to win the game and you're really excited about it, and then the opposing team runs back the opening kickoff for a touchdown? And everybody in the stadium, it just goes, just all the air goes out because you're not defeated. But what does everybody say? What a terrible way to start. What a bad start. See, we understand the value of a good start. I don't think any organization exemplifies the value of a good start more than NASA. I've been studying NASA the last couple of weeks, getting ready for this. And specifically, I was studying when they would launch shuttles. The last NASA shuttle was Atlantis, and its last launch was on July 8th, 2011. We have a picture right here. This is the launch of July 8th, 2011. Now, do you have any idea the amount of time and energy that goes into that launch, that goes into that start? That shuttle Atlantis had been in a hangar for over a year. Where they were doing nothing but tests and inspections and making sure it was right and ready to go. And then 38 days prior to launch, it was moved into position on the launch pad. And then for those 38 days, they were in test after test after test. About halfway through those 38 days, they actually do a complete dress rehearsal. They do a complete run-through of the launch. I guess it goes like 3, 2, 1, psych. I don't know, because they didn't launch it, but they do everything else completely the same because they're checking it and then they're testing it. And then at T-minus 43 hours to launch, things really go to a whole nother level. And they start testing everything. They have hundreds and hundreds of things on a checklist that they're checking. They have 23 different departments that have to sign off before you can launch. 23 different people. In the final count, they'll have to say go, go, go. And then T-minus 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch. And they are constantly, we're about to have a new space program, so they continue to do it. But they were constantly evaluating and constantly testing and constantly trying to get it better and better and better. And unfortunately, we know why. Because we know that NASA's had a great number of successes, and it's been awesome, but there's been a few tragedies. There's been a few mistakes. And so they have worked relentlessly to refine their testing and to refine their prep procedures because that beginning, that launch is so crucial. And I'm sure somewhere along the way, someone's raised their hand and be like, hey guys, I think 30 days is enough. Really, 38 days early? Do we really need 23 different people signing off? Isn't this good enough? Haven't we figured this out? Haven't we settled this? Do we really need to keep working? Do we really need to keep trying? Do we really need to keep striving to make this better? And the answer was a resounding yes, we do. Because we all inherently understand that a good start isn't good enough when lives hang in the balance. We just know this. It's just inherent. Don't have to think. Even putting it on the screen, you're like, well, duh, of course. Of course. If your family was on that shuttle, would you want a good start? Or would you want the best start? When the doctor comes into your room and tells you you or a family member needs surgery, you want a good doctor? You want the nurse to say, I mean, he's not the worst we got. Or do you want the best? You want the best, right? Because there's just inherent natural understanding in all of us that a good start isn't good enough when lives hang in the balance. When lives hang in the balance, only the best will do. Only the best will do. You understand this, I understand this, we all understand this. But I bring it up because it sets us up perfectly for where we're going to go today and for the series we're launching today. If you're a guest today, we do series here at Wellspring, which means we talk about the same topic for 4 or 5 weeks, and then we move on to a new topic. And today is kind of an intro to the message we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks. The series is called All in the Family. I know some of you are wondering, what is this talking about? Is this going to be a parenting series? Why are we doing this? Well, let me explain why we're doing this series. If you're new to our church, you should know we have a mission. We have a reason we exist, and this is it. We exist to see those that are far from God become passionate followers of Jesus Christ. What that means is we believe that Jesus Christ is the answer to everything. We believe life is better with Jesus. And so what we want to do is we want to help connect as many people as possible to their Heavenly Father through Jesus so that Jesus can guide their life. Because we believe life with Jesus is better. That's why we exist. That's why I moved to this place. That's why we started this church. That's why I moved into this building. That's why we have 3 services. Because we want as many people as possible to discover that Jesus is real, that he loves them, and that he has an amazing plan for their life. That's why we're here. And that's what we want to reach. We want to reach everybody with this message. But as we try to reach everybody, we also want to be effective. We want to be strategic. So we focus on the beginning of the relationship. Many of you are here today, and maybe you don't believe in God, or maybe Wellspring was the first church you attended in a long time. That's because we're designed for that. We are designed for people to begin their relationship here. We think about people who don't know anything about God. We think about people who haven't been in church in a long time. We design our church for them because we want to make it easy to reconnect with God, because we want people to have the best start possible in their life. And while we want to reach everyone, like I said, we want to be strategic, so we focus on the beginning of your relationship with God, but we also have a hyper focus on the beginning of life. We focus on kids. And I think everyone in this room who's a parent can understand that. Is there anything you wouldn't do for your kid? Doesn't every decent parent want the absolute best for their child? I know I do. And I know you do, because I know many of you, and I know the things you do to give your child the best start in life. I know that some of you have spent nights in cars, in parking lots, so that you could get your kids signed up for the right preschool. I know you did that. And I'm not mocking you. You love your kids. You love your kids, and you want the best start possible for them. So if that means I'm spending the night in the parking lot, I'll spend the night in the parking lot, because they got to be in this preschool. I know for some of you, you spend money on tutors for your kids, or you spend money on extra coaching for your kids so that they can make the right travel team, or they can make, the right dance team, or so they can get into the right classes. I was with a bunch of moms this week while we were at student camp, which was amazing, and letters went out this week to tell people who their teachers were. You would have thought that someone had declared war. I mean, there were texting, there was someone said, well, I didn't get my letter. Did you get your? I'm going up there. I mean, and again, it sounds like I'm mocking. I promise I'm not. Please, I'm not. I'm not. You care because parents have this inherent desire. You have this inherent knowledge. You understand that you want your child to have the best shot possible. And when you see things that you think are disadvantageous, when you see things that you think are unfair, something wells up inside of you that you don't even fight for on your own. And if you don't believe me, go watch a child sporting event. Because you will see rational human beings who are calm, collected CEOs of organizations. They run the world. But when an umpire calls their 10-year-old out and they don't think they were out, those people lose their minds. And here's why. It's because they understand. They want their child to have every advantage possible. They want their child to have every opportunity possible to succeed. And they understand they only get one shot to start their life. They get this idea that a good start isn't good enough when lives hang in the balance. Only the best will do. Every decent parent in this room understands this concept. We live it, we breathe it. We don't judge each other for doing it. We fully understand it. And I want you to know that your church understands as well. And we are convinced that Jesus is best. And because of that, we're launching a series today that we're calling All in the Family. Because at Wellspring, we are all in on family. This is a series not about how to raise your family. We'll talk about that later. This series is to showcase for every person who calls Wellspring home, every person watching online, every person in Myrtle Beach, that if you want to find the place that is sold out to not just giving your kids a good start, but to giving your kids the absolute best start possible, to partnering with you, to point them towards Jesus, to position them for the best life possible, you have found the place. Because we are sold out. We are all in on helping families start well. Now, why? Why would we do that? Why would we be so passionate about making sure that your children and my children get a great start? Well, that's a fantastic question. And the answer, as with so many things in our lives, is because God said so. God tells us to do it, specifically today through a man named Solomon. Solomon was the king of Israel. His dad, David, had been the king of Israel. And then Solomon comes along and he becomes the king. And we're told that Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived. Solomon wrote several books in what we call the Old Testament, which is basically a history of the Jewish faith leading up to the birth of Jesus. And Solomon wrote, if any of you guys were here in the spring, we did a series on marriage. Solomon wrote that book. It's called the Song of Solomon. Solomon also wrote a book called the Book of Proverbs, which is basically just a book of really wise sayings, really smart things, little nuggets of truth that God gives us that we can believe, that we can trust, and we can live our life on. And in that book of Proverbs, Solomon speaks directly to this issue. He speaks directly to parents. He speaks directly to any person who has anything to do with children. And in Proverbs verse 22:6, this is what he says. He says, start children off on the way they should go. He says, hey, your children, they're going to go a lot of different directions and you can't control them and eventually they're going to have to own it for themselves. But I understand how parents think. I understand what you're thinking. We all understand you need a good start. You need the best start. So here's what I'm telling you right now. You need to start children off on the way they should go. Which way should they go? Well, again, we believe they should go towards Jesus. We believe life with Jesus is better. We believe that Jesus Christ wants to come down and be their personal guide in life. It's not a list of rules they have to follow. It's a relationship they can grow. It's a relationship for all of us. Jesus literally wants to take our hand and walk through life with us. He wants to point us in the right direction to the good things. He wants to help us avoid some landmines. He wants to help us avoid some sin because he wants us to avoid shame and regret and the pain of making bad choices and bad decisions. Jesus wants to walk with us through that. And so what this verse is saying is, hey parents, start your children off towards Jesus. That's the best thing you can do. Now, let's be honest for a second. If you're a parent today, and maybe you've been in church your whole life. Maybe you love Jesus. Maybe you've been to I have a master's degree in loving Jesus. And when I hear start your children off on the way to Jesus, even I go, but what does that mean sometimes? How do I point my kids to Jesus when I just want to point them to their room for a month? I ain't feel like pointing them to Jesus. They have talked back and I'm done with it. And I want to punish them. Jesus went, and Jesus is like, oh, you should love them. Well, then you love them, Jesus. I'm going to punish them for a while. It can be overwhelming. It can be daunting when we're told things like, in the New Testament, this guy named Paul, he says, hey, parents, he says, raise your children with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. In other words, he says, love them like I love you. You're like, but you're God. You're God and I'm not. How are we supposed to do that? Now, if you're here today and you don't believe in God, it's even a more daunting test. You're like, how could I point my kids to somebody I don't believe in? Like, how would we do this? It can be this overwhelming idea when we're thinking about trying to make sure our kids get the best start possible. I mean, all the other things, preschool, grades, like those are tangible things. We can measure that. But if you believe in Jesus and we're trying to figure out how to point our kids towards Jesus and make sure we point them in the right way, it can be daunting. It can be overwhelming. It can be scary. And just wait, it gets worse. Because he says, start children off on the way they should go. On the way sounds directional, okay? But what the Hebrew actually says here is according to their way. So it's not just directional, it's personal. He's saying, start children off on the way they should go. Point children towards Jesus in a personal way. In an age-appropriate way. A way that's going to communicate to them. A way that's going to engage them. And not just in an age-appropriate way, in a learning style appropriate way. In a personality appropriate way. What he's saying, parent, is it's your job to tailor create an 18-year strategy to point your child to Jesus in the way they best are going to receive it. And if you have 3 kids, you need 3 strategies. Because you've met your kids. You're like, how did you come from the same place? I don't understand. I don't get how this works. That's what God says. Hey, parents, not to raise the bar or anything, but make sure you give your kids the best start possible towards my son. Because my son's what's best for them. But the best start possible is going to be age appropriate, it's going to be learning style appropriate, and it's going to be personality appropriate, and it's going to engage them, it's going to pull them in. So again, parents, no pressure. See, it's into this pressure, it's into this tension, it's into this struggle that I believe God sends his church. I believe God sends us to say, hey, parents, we get it. We're parents ourselves. And we are here not to parent your children, but to partner with you as you parent your children. And it is an aggressive partnership. It is a partnership where we want to equip you. It is a partnership where we want to engage you in the process. It is a partnership where we want to encourage you because we know how crucial it is to have a great start. And at Wellspring, we do this through something we call family ministries. We have 2 distinct family ministry environments. The first is Wellspring Kids. Wellspring Kids is a Sunday morning environment, birth through 5th grade. And we break that down a little further into preschool and elementary age environments. And in those environments, our number one goal is in a Sunday morning is to have an age-appropriate, engaging experience so that your children can begin to fall in love with God. We want to point them towards their Heavenly Father. And next week, we are going to talk extensively about what we do in Wellspring Kids. So if you have a kid, if you know a kid, if you want to be a kid, if you want to have kids, I'm encouraging you to come back next week because we are going to highlight for you our entire plan, our entire strategy, birth through fifth grade, and what we are convinced provides the best start possible for your children. Now, please hear this. Our strategy does not stop on a Sunday. It begins on a Sunday. Sunday is where we begin the engagement. Next week, we're going to talk about all the things that we want to do with you, the parent. Because you're the parent, we're not. Our job isn't to parent. Our job is to partner. Partner with you to equip you to do the very same thing. The thing we all want. The thing you want whether you believe in God or not. Nobody in this room would say, you know what, I want my kids to have an okay life. Everybody wants their children to have the best life possible. And we are convinced, not because of who we are, but because of who we're pointing them to, that the strategy God has given us sets your child up for success, for the best life possible. But it doesn't just stop at Wellspring Kids. We also have an environment that we call Wellspring Students. We are really fancy with our naming of things. We really think through it a lot. Wellspring Students is our middle school and high school environment. And in case you're wondering, we have a really great 1-2 punch here because we have April Colquitt and Eric Colquitt. I don't know if you know they're married. And they lead Wellspring Kids and Wellspring Students. And so parents, I know some of you have elementary age kids right now. And this year or next year, you've just got that knot in your stomach and you don't know what to do because middle school is coming. We know. We get it. We're prepared for it. We actually have a strategy designed to help a child transition from fifth grade to sixth grade without going insane. And they're going to anyway, but we're just going to love them through it because that's part of what happens. But then in middle school, we pick up and we have more thought out, age-appropriate plans and ideas for middle school students, for high school students. As Abby talked about, we just got back from camp this week, and man, it was just fantastic. It was great. It was a perfect environment for middle school and high school students to take another step towards Jesus. But we have the same value that we have with elementary. It's not our job to parent. It's our job to partner. And we want to partner with you. And in 2 weeks, we are going to dedicate our entire Sunday morning to students. And how we reach students and how we talk to students and how we want to help students have the best start possible in their life. What am I really talking about? We have a thought out, studied, prayed over, church tested, science backed, research proven plan and strategy from birth to high school graduation. We have thought it through, we have studied, we have planned, we have prayed, and we're not talking about things we will do. We are talking about things we've done. We have the results to back it up. And if I may be so bold, and I will because I'm up here, and I might be a little biased, but we believe, again, not because of who we are, but because what God's doing, we believe that this church is the best place on the Grand Strand to give your kids the best start possible. We believe that with all our hearts. And so some of you may be wondering, why are we going to spend weeks talking about this? Because we want you informed, and we want you inspired, and we want you encouraged, and we want you to know what your church is doing. We want you to be able to invite people to come back with you and to hear this. And I know for some of you, you're sitting there thinking, yeah, man, this is great, but I don't have kids, and I don't want kids, or I've had kids and they're gone. I now have grandkids, they live somewhere else. I love them, but then they leave. So Family Ministries, I'm really glad you guys are doing this, but what does this have to do with me? Well, it's very simple, actually. If you call Wellspring home, if you participate here, if you attend here, if you serve here, if you give here, you are an investor in our organization. You are investing in the work of this church. And for the next few weeks, we are going to highlight the amazing return you're having on your investment. If you've never set foot back in our Family Ministries environment, but you're a part of this church, you are investing in the life change of the next generation. You are investing in giving these children and these students the best start possible. And that should encourage you. That should excite you. That should make you feel great. That should make you feel drawn in to what we're doing. Now, if you're here and you are a parent and you feel like your head is about this much above water and you just don't quite know what to do, this should be a lifeboat. This should fill you with joy. Because maybe you didn't know it, but help isn't even on the way. Help is here. We're ready. We've got a plan. We've got a strategy. We've got amazing leaders. We want to help you. Because we know the very same thing you know. We know you love your children. We know you love your students. We know you want to give them the best start possible. Why? Because a good start isn't good enough when lives hang in the balance. When lives hang in the balance, only the best will do. And so we want to spend a few weeks highlighting the strategy that we believe is best. And we want to invite you to partner with us, to give us the privilege of partnering with you as we point your children and your students towards Jesus, as we do everything in our power to follow this verse, as we do everything in our power to start children off on the way they should go. We want to start them well. Do you know why? Do you know why starting well is so important? It's because there's a second half to this verse. See, this verse isn't just a command. Like everything God ever does for us, it's a command with a promise. It's saying, hey, if you follow me, life's going to be better because I love you and I want better for your life. Look what God says in this verse. He says, start children off on the way they should go. And even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Now don't miss what God just did, parents. God just gave you the very thing you've wanted since the doctor put that baby in your hands. The very thing you've wanted since that judge hit that gavel and declared that they were yours. The very thing you've wanted was to find a way to guarantee that they were going to have every opportunity to live the best life possible. It's why you've done everything you've done on their behalf. And God just said, hey, you don't have to worry about that because I love them more than you. And I want to work with you and I want to partner with you. And I'm just telling you, you start them off on the way they should go. You start them off according to their way. You start them off well. You point them towards my son, and you do it in a way that is age appropriate, that draws them in, that engages them, that speaks to them directly. You surround them with leaders who are going to take the time to get to know them personally so they understand their personal unique struggles, so they understand the specific way to communicate to them with their personality and their learning styles. You surround them with that. You do that. You put in the work. You put in the effort. You start them well. And I'll guarantee for you right now, it won't be in vain. I'll back it up right here and right now. Jesus says, you do that, man. God says through Solomon, you do that well. And even when they're old, they will not turn from it. Parents, the God of the universe just made you a promise. The God of the universe just said, hey, I hear you. I understand what you're looking for. Because I view them the same way. Because I created them. And I've got a plan for their life. And my plan's even bigger than your plan because I can see the future. I know what they can do. And I've got the best for them. And I want to help you give them the best start because parents, you're right, their lives hang in the balance. What's God saying? Same thing we're saying. That a good start isn't good enough when lives hang in the balance. Only the best will do. The gracious, loving God of the universe has created a place and has gifted it with amazing, talented, loving, sacrificial people who want nothing more than to help you launch your children well. Next week, we are going to talk about Wellspring kids. And so if you have a preschool or elementary age child, if you know a preschool or elementary age child, if you behave like a preschool or elementary age child, come back next week. And the next Sunday night, boy, do we have something special. Next Sunday night, we are having Kids Celebrate. Now, you want to talk about having hope in the next generation. Kids Celebrate is an event we do every year where we teach our children what it means to live a life pointed towards Jesus. The next Sunday night, we'll have a celebration back in this room. And I hope you'll come be a part of that. I really do. And as we close, I just want to circle back to one thing. Because I know that there are still people in the room who are like, okay, this is nice. I'm glad the church is doing this. I'll be back in a few weeks when this is over, but I don't really have family ministries. It's not really my deal. I'm not a part of this. So love you guys. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. And I really want to challenge that thought. And rather than me challenging, I'm going to let Jesus challenge it because he's way more powerful than I am. In Jesus' most famous sermon, he taught a truth that is understood the world over. It's called the Golden Rule. Do you know Jesus taught that? Do you know Jesus created the Golden Rule? It says, treat other people the way you want to be treated. So here's my only question. Whether you have kids, whether you don't have kids, whether you're passionate about family ministries or not, one question. Don't you wish you'd had the best start possible? Don't you wish that you would have had access as a preschooler to a church that was going to do everything in their power to point you towards your Heavenly Father and to help you grow that relationship on your own? Don't you wish you'd had that? Okay. Then do for others what you wish had been done for you. This is not a time to check out if you do not have a student or a child in family ministries. This is a time to be Jesus to everyone in our church that does have a student or a child. This is a time for you to say, hey, boy, I sure wish somebody had done this for me. I'm going to step up. I'm going to be engaged. I'm going to pray. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to give. I'm going to make sure I fund this because I sure wish someone had done it for me. Just because you didn't get the best start doesn't mean we should rob the next generation of it, because we all understand. We've all said that a good start isn't good enough when lives hang in the balance. Then only the best will do, which is why NASA takes over a year to plan a launch. See, at Wellspring, we view college graduation, high school graduation, as your students launch into life, which means we have 18 years, hopefully. Sometimes we have to abort that launch at the last minute. You get one more year. But we have 18 years. And folks, I'm telling you, we have some of the smartest people I've ever worked with in church, and we have access to some of the greatest resources, some of the greatest churches in the world. And we are leveraging every single one of them to make sure we have a plan and a strategy from birth to launch date, so that when that happens, when your student launches, you will know we did the best we could. Here's what you don't want to have happen, parents. You don't want to launch your students into life and then look back and say, boy, I wish we'd done more. Boy, I wish we could have given them a better shot. Boy, I wish we could have done more. I'm telling you right now, if you're a part of our church, you do not have to wish that. You simply have to invite us in. Allow us to partner with you. Allow us to equip you. Allow us to encourage you. Allow us to engage with you so that we can make sure we give our kids the best start possible. Because when lives hang in the balance, only the best will do. So one question and we're done. One question. What can you do this week to help the next generation get their best start? What does that look like? Is it simply inviting some people to come back with you next week? Is it having a conversation and plugging in? Is it having a conversation and being more equipped to know some of the resources we have and how you can begin to engage your children in spiritual conversations? I don't know what the step is for you, but I bet you do. So we're going to sing one more song. And when we're done, our prayer team's going to be down front. And if you'd like to talk to our prayer team, if you would like to pray with them about what your next step is, if you want to pray for your children, if you want to pray that God will allow you to do whatever it takes to give them the best start possible, they'll be down front. They'll be here for you. But as we sing, just simply ask, all right, God, I didn't get this start. I didn't have the best start possible. And I know it turned out okay, but man, there are some things I could have avoided. There are some lessons I could have learned. There are some scars I wouldn't have. So God, what can you do in my life this week? How can you use me to help make sure we give the next generation the best start possible? That should be your prayer. But watch out. When you do, God will answer. And you'll have an opportunity to change the world. I hope you'll take it. Let's pray. God, we love you so much. We just thank you for your Son. We thank you for your truth. We thank you for your love for us. God, I just pray for every person in this room, every person watching online, that we will be drawn to providing the best for the next generation. That we will be drawn into making sure that their lives are better than ours. Father, I thank you for the privilege of being a part of a church that values the next generation. And God, I just pray that you bless this series and that you let the word go far and wide into the Grand Strand. That we are all in on family and we are here to partner, we are here to help. Because when lives hang in the balance, only the best will do. We love you, Father. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.